Welcome to another episode of the Washington Retirement Planning Podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Meikle, and on this podcast, I help Washington State employees get a better understanding of their confusing state retirement benefits and help you guys understand them in a way so you can retire earlier and spend less in taxes. Today, I wanted to go over Plan 2. Specifically, we're going to talk about early retirement benefits first, some facts you need to know if you are considering retiring earlier on Plan 2, and then I want to spend most of today's episode talking about a recent comment I got on a video about a Plan 2 member and why they think they don't really have to plan for anything because they have more income in retirement than they did working. And that's a common situation we see a lot. But to say you don't have to plan for anything is a little misguided. And so I want to point out a few things that you probably should still be planning for, even if you're on Plan 2, even if you have more income in retirement than you do working. All right, so let's dive right into it. So when you're on Plan 2 and you're trying to retire early, remember that if you do not have 30 years of service in and you're not 65 yet, there's going to be penalties that apply if you decide to collect your pension early. So if you don't want to pay any kind of penalties, then just hold off collecting your pension. There's no penalties for retiring and delaying collecting. Now, if you have your 30 years of service, you're eligible for full benefits at age 62. If you want to collect your benefits before 62, there is still penalties that apply, but they're a lot less. It's only 2% for the first year that you go early and 3% for every year before that. So for instance, going 2 years early, it's a 5% reduction. If you want to go 3 years early, then it's an 8% reduction. It's really not that bad in the scheme of things, especially when you compare it to the type of hit you take if you took Social Security early. So if you're retiring early on Plan 2 and you do not want to take a penalty on your pension, then you have to tap into some other sources or find another job. Remember, while you're on Plan 2, there is no cash that automatically gets saved and accumulated like it does on Plan 3. So that's why it's important to be saving on the side on Plan 2. If you've ever seen a statement while in Plan 2 that has a pot of money in it, that is your total contributions. And if you wanted to tap into that, which you could, you forfeit your pension. So do not take any cash out of your pension plan if you're on Plan 2, because you're going to wipe out your future income. That's a huge mistake I've seen people make. So if you need more cash while on Plan 2, just tap into some other retirement account that you have. Also, when you're retiring early, you want to figure out what you're going to do with all your unused sick leave. You can cash it all in, and then you have to pay taxes on the whole thing. Or sometimes people decide just to use their sick leave before leaving, and they'll actually be able to retire 1 to 2 weeks earlier than that, depending on how much sick time they had saved up. Now, the other option you have is you can actually roll your sick leave into VEBA. Now, it's a 4-to-1 exchange. Basically, you get a quarter on the dollar. The money that moves into VEBA is 100% tax-free. It actually grows because it is invested, tax-deferred, and it will come out tax-free. So you never have to pay taxes on this money ever, as long as you use it for medical expenses. So VEBA is a very tax-efficient tool and great way to pay for healthcare. Now, if you have some savings set up, some people wonder, should I just pay for healthcare out of my savings or should I use my VEBA? If you have enough savings saved up above and beyond emergency fund cushion, then using your savings account will probably actually be a better idea than using the VEBA. Money sitting in savings doesn't really do much for you. It isn't growing, especially with today's interest rates. And on top of that, any interest you do get, you still pay taxes on it. So using that money first to pay for some healthcare while letting your VEBA accumulate because it is invested and grow tax deferred and come out tax free, it's usually a much better financial strategy. Again, it will depend on your situation if you can afford to do that. When it comes to Social Security while retiring early, you have the option to start it at age 62 at the very earliest, but you're probably going to take a significant penalty if you do so. So you probably have seen your Social Security statement and there's that full retirement age. It's usually the first number you see in that statement. That's the 100% number of your benefit. So even though you're allowed to touch it before that, keep in mind that is a penalty or a reduced amount. It is a permanent reduction and it is pretty significant. So tapping Social Security early is usually a last resort. I usually don't recommend it unless you absolutely need to. All right, so that's some Plan 2 retirement facts in a nutshell. Now I want to transition on to the main topic of today's podcast, and that is on this comment persona Plan 2. So I'm going to read you the comment that they left me. This was in response to one of my YouTube shorts where I was actually agreeing with Dave Ramsey on how people really expect the government to take care of them. And then I got this comment and I thought it was a really good topic to bring to you guys. So I'll just read you guys off the comment. So this person says, I appreciate and agree with most of what you say, but the beauty of being on Plan 1 or Plan 2, given you work a few decades and retire at your designated age, is that you don't really have to plan much. I'll retire soon on Plan 2 at the designated retirement age and will make more money for my pension and Social Security than I did while I was working. And the best part is, with much respect to you, is that I never have to plan for a thing. All right, let's talk about this one. So Plan 2, amazing plan. You're not going to find any argument from me here. but you still need a plan. Income doesn't solve all of your problems, especially when you have fixed income. Okay, so we're going to go over 5 points about things you still need to plan for or account for, even if you're on plan 2, even if you have more income retirement than you did while working, or you think everything's all set, because if you can make more money retired than working, that somehow these other problems don't exist. So let's dive into it. So the first thing that this person needs to understand, or anyone on plan 2 with this same kind of mindset, is that even though you have more income retirement than you did while working, is that you're still living paycheck to paycheck. You still have to wait for payday. So if you want to go on that vacation or you got to fix something, you don't got the funds for that if you're not saving anywhere else, right? So I'm assuming this person is no individual. So he didn't do any planning. He just worked, saved, retired, got his plan 2, got his Social Security. So if that's you, remember that you're still going to be living paycheck to paycheck. Now, I don't know anybody who wants to brag about living paycheck to paycheck ever, let alone in retirement, when you want to be doing all the fun things, right? So that's just one thing. But let's dive into the main ones. That was just like a side note. I got the 5 main points still coming. So first, you need to remember that with Social Security, it's still taxable money too, and it depends on your income. And if you have a big fat plan 2 pension, you're probably over the income threshold anyways, and you're going to start seeing tax dollars being withheld from your Social Security benefits. So single filers, once you start making over $25,000, up to 50% of your benefits become taxable. Once you cross $34,000, then up to 85% become taxable. If you're married and you file jointly, income after 32 is then 50% becomes taxable, and then after 44 up to 85% becomes taxable. And now that's what they call provisional income. So for those numbers, you take your plan 2 pension plus half of your Social Security benefits, and then if you have any other, rental income, retirement distributions, you add all that on top of it. So those numbers haven't been updated since the 80s. So most people are paying taxes on Social Security nowadays. All right, so to this point, you still have to pay taxes on this money. If this person did have any savings, and let's say they're pre-tax and you pulled money out of, that all becomes taxable in the current tax bracket that he's in. So the PERS 2 pension is going to fill up the bottom part of this tax bracket. Then you got Social Security on top of that. Then basically every dollar you take out at that point, we tax at that marginal rate. Effective rate might be less, but the marginal rate is going to be at that top end of the bracket that you're in. So this person, he owes 22% of every dollar that gets taken out of any retirement accounts if you had one. All right. Part 2 of this is you got to watch for tax increases. So when you're living paycheck to paycheck, everything's pre-tax. An increase in taxes is a pay cut for you, right? So if this person is making $60,000 a year off of their pension and $20,000 off of their Social Security, so they got $80,000 a year coming in, guaranteed for life, and taxes are at 20%, then they go up to 30%, then you have to owe more of your money to the government. So you're going to see a decrease in what you get to take home. So if we had $80,000, just keep numbers simple here. Let's say if you were paying at the 20% level, you're paying about $16,000, right? So you'd be taking home like $64,000. But if now you owe 30%, because that's what the government said, and if you're stuck in that bracket because you have those guaranteed income sources, there's nothing you can do about it. Now your take-home pay goes down to $56,000. So you get a $8,000 tax cut because taxes increase by 10%, and there's nothing you can do about it. And if you are relying on that $64,000 or $5,000 a month to cover your bills, and now you got to figure out how to make it work, earning $8,000 less, that might be a tough thing to do. And these tax codes, well, they don't change super often, they still do change, and they can last for years. The current tax code that we're in, got put in place in 2018 and is looking to change at the end of this year. Whether Congress does it or not, taxes are changing at the end of 2025, right? So if you don't want to be at the mercy of the IRS and tax code, this is something you need to plan for. That's where having some type of savings, 403B, deferred comp, comes into play. If your income or pension goes down, your Social Security goes down because taxes increase and we need additional money, you got no place to turn because you didn't plan for it. This is why you need to have savings. So dip into it to account for potential decreases in your take-home pay because of taxes. All right. Now, third point I want to make here is your healthcare costs. Healthcare is a very expensive thing you have to cover in retirement, and those costs are not fixed. They increase. And you also don't know, when you're going to need to use healthcare, what's going to be covered, what's not covered, what's your out of pocket, depends on what healthcare plan you went with. But one thing's for sure is that healthcare insurance is expensive and it continually goes up. Even if you're in the PEB system, they still have increases. If you're in a position where the healthcare plan jumps up, that's going to cut into your pension plan or into your Social Security budget. So you're going to have rising costs. If those costs increase by more than what your cost of living adjustment is accounting for, then you're going to start seeing it in your take home or what you can actually spend. So it can eventually creep up over time. Not to mention that if there is anything not covered by your plan and you have to pay deductibles or something out of pocket, then you may not have the funds readily available, to do that. Unless you're saving a significant part of your pension into like a savings account, which isn't earning much interest, you might have some of that, but eventually it's probably gonna run out. If it's not growing with the market, at some point you may deplete it, because it doesn't take much for healthcare, to wipe you out. I spoke with someone yesterday who actually went to undergo cancer treatments, and his injections, post-op rejections, were $26,000 a shot. Now, it was covered mostly by his insurance plan, but could you imagine if that wasn't covered in the future, or something changed and you had to pay for that somehow? That would hurt a lot of people. So it's something you have to watch for. Now, one thing that's not covered by any health insurance is long-term care coverage. Statistically, 70% of people are going to need some type of care, whether that's in-home care where someone comes and helps you out, or you have to go to a facility, you need some type of care. And if someone is watching you, essentially babysitting you for 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, even full-time care, and you got to pay that person's salary, that's why it's so expensive. If you have no plan to pay for long-term care, you have no savings to dip into, and you start getting hit with a $6,000 a month long-term care bill, where's the money going to come from? If it's more than what you're bringing from the pension, who's going to cover that bill? Now, some people think that Medicaid is going to cover them up, but Medicaid, a lot of facilities won't take it. You got to meet certain, income and asset requirements, so it's not something you want to bank on per se, and it ain't free. You can still get hit with a bill to put a lien on your home or your property, even when it's all said and done. They're not in the business to lose money. They're going to recoup it for you one way or another. So long-term care is something you really do have to plan for. Even if you're making more now in retirement, long-term care can easily wipe you out. Even if you don't have necessarily anything to lose, somebody's going to get hit with that bill eventually. Point number 4, inflation. Remember that the cost of inflation goes up, it's going to erode into your benefits. We've been seeing it a lot more lately. Back in 2022, we saw inflation briefly hit about 8%. The costing adjustment on PERS 2 is that cap is at 3%. Right? So if you have 8% inflation and they only got 3% benefit, which again only pays out in July, you are going to have to figure out how to deal with that until your next pay increase. And again, it's only 3%. So if you're ever in a place where inflation is running 4, 5, 6% and it stays there, it does not come down like it has in the past 2 years, it just stays persistent, that 3% benefit may not cut it. And you don't want to be hoping that DRS someone makes a change to increase the costume adjustments or give one-time benefits. Right? We don't want to be at the mercy of the government. You want to have the funds available to pay for those increases if the 3% costume adjustment isn't enough. So while PERS 2 is considered, a safe benefit, it's pretty much fully funded, the costume adjustment may not keep up with your needs. Social Security, we always hear about how they may run out. People always want to cut it and this and that. While I consider still safe guaranteed money, there's always a chance they could change it. They could decrease benefits and things like that. It would be a tragedy, but with the government officials and the way they are, they don't rely on it, doesn't hurt them, doesn't hurt their donors or supporters, then it could happen. Now, my 5th and last point about this, about something you still need to plan for, is your estate plan. What happens when you're gone? So you didn't save anything, you got no assets to pass down. Does that mean you don't need a will, an estate plan, power of attorney, healthcare directive, trust, things like that? And while your needs may be simple, you may not need trust or things like that, you still need to have at least 3 key documents in place. Every person over age 18 needs to have at least some type of will that lets people know your wishes, some type of power of attorney, both financial and for healthcare. And you need to have your last will and testament. Essentially, what are your wishes, or how do you want to be cared for in the event you're incapacitated? Who's going to pull the plug? Do you want life-saving measures or not? It's still things you need to have sick. If you don't have that, then no one has the right to make the decision. A lot of people think just because they're married that somehow their wife gets that ability. Now, unless you have that power of attorney with you, or the hospital has it, they can't take what your wife's wishes are. Doesn't matter how much you talk about it. If the document's not there, they can't act on it. So you still need to have an estate plan if you don't think you have any assets, right? I'm sure you still have bank accounts. Where's the plan to or the Social Security money and deposited? If it's a joint bank account, maybe you're okay. If you got any kind of accounts that are in your name only, your wife's not going to have access to that, right? If you're the one that files the taxes, who's going to be the one that helps her file the taxes? Also, part of that is, what your final wishes are. Who's going to make that decision, right? A lot of people will list their spouse, and then next they have their kids. If they have more than one kid, which kid makes the decision? Are they all going to agree on it? Do you expect your kids to agree on when it's time to pull the plug on mom or dad? If you only list the older one, which is usually the default option, is the younger sibling going to hate them for the rest of your life? Without giving wishes clear, making clear estate plans, having the type of family meeting, then you can easily create a rift in your family. So estate planning is still super, super important. If you don't have any assets and you think you're all good with Plan 2 and Social Security covering all your expenses, estate plans are still something that need to be put in place and communicated with all parties. So there's no confusion about what your wishes are or the plan of action if or when the unfortunate events come. All right, so that's my response to that. So hopefully that give you guys some insight on things they need to plan for, whether or not you're on, plan 2 or have Social Security or anything like that. These are all really good planning points. They go above and beyond just your pension plans, above and beyond just looking at investments, which I know a lot of people and a lot of advisors, that's where their whole focus of their meetings is what investments do we pick in that. The reason why I spend so much time talking about, retirement benefits is because it is a huge part of your retirement savings. Oftentimes people will say, is all you do is retirement benefits? And retirement benefits is something I talk about all the time because it is a big part, but it's not the only thing. There still needs to be a lot of planning that occurs. People in plan 2 often have this mindset of, I don't have any assets, therefore I don't need a plan. I don't need a financial advisor. There's nothing really to manage. There's no investments. But that's not all we do. I have a lot of clients that essentially don't have investments or will do their own investment planning, but they still come to us for the outside help because they need someone to help them with their taxes, figure out their estate plan wishes, to make sure it's communicated correctly with the attorneys, right? To help make adjustments when times come. So there is still a need for financial advisors, even if you don't have any assets. Now, it may not be something you need to do every year, but still having one to talk to occasionally is not a bad idea, to make sure everything's to work out smoothly and to make sure that whoever inherits the money or has to do with your estate has someone to contact to help sort out the affairs, because it's not a fun event to do on your own. All right, so that's it for this episode. If you haven't done so yet, in the link below, we have a new free community that I'm putting together. It's over on a website called School. It's exclusive for Washington employees. It's free to join. I got exclusive content on there about your state benefits. It's nothing that you're going to see on the podcast or on YouTube. In addition to that, I'm encouraging people to, post questions and share things there. We're trying to get a community going together so we can get this information out to everybody in Washington. Feel free to click that link and join if you can. If you know someone that's not in the group yet, send them the link so they can get in there. So join, drop a comment in the group, and I'll talk to you guys over on there. And until next time, always remember that your future depends what you do today. All right, before I sign off, just a real quick legal disclosure that we're required to say as licensed fiduciary advisors. So remember that this is a podcast. It is designed for educational and entertainment purposes only. I don't know you personally, therefore I cannot give you any personal advice. So please don't take anything that we say on the show as being personal, financial, legal, or tax advice. If you want that kind of stuff, make sure you seek out a professional so they can help you with the strategies and investments that are right for you. Also, please remember that despite the name of our show, we are in no way associated with Washington State or the Department of Retirement Systems or any other Washington employer. We're a private-owned firm that specializes in working with Washington State employees, which is why we know so much about this stuff. So remember, we don't work for the state in any way, shape, or form. So please don't confuse us as being an official representative of the state. All right, that's it for the legal stuff. I'll catch you guys all next time.